Nicole Bieber, and then Moses Bieber.
It's Bieber, thank you. Nicole Kiwe Bieber, Indigenous Kaz, Wagna Casino da Anishinaabe Kwe, Mishiki Dodem, Nikwejigan, Dojaba. So, a few things when you were speaking that stood out to me. This notion of a transition won't happen overnight. You know what can happen overnight? Could happen just a minute from now, is that 73-year-old pipeline could just rupture. Wouldn't take an anchor strike. I don't think there was an anchor strike from the Kalamazoo River. Very interesting language to say disappointed, outraged, but frankly terrified. So with that spill that could happen overnight, at any moment, you just made it that much more likely because basically they get to keep the oil going while they have their little pet project. We all know it's probably going to be contested by people who are sane and care about our collective future. But in the meantime, they can keep their oil flowing. So they get their way. And their word is somehow deemed sufficient. All those pages and pages of records you mentioned, not to mention talking about government approvals, our tribal governments do not approve this. Our governor and our attorney general do not approve this. You talk about a long road. I have tribal brothers and sisters here, elders, children. I had no idea what you all would do today. It's like, how do we know what to say? We don't know what they're going to decide. But I found something that would work for either direction it went. I have this book here. I have two books with me. This is the Mishomis book. This is Braiding Sweetgrass. They both have a lot of meaning to us because they are part of what has assured that we know who we are. And that's we're in the seventh fire right now. What we've gathered together of our teachings and of our responsibilities is what we're carrying here now. And there's a possibility at this moment of an eighth fire being lit. And what that says is, at this time, the light-skinned race will be given a choice between two worlds. If they choose the right road, then the seventh fire will light the eighth and final fire, an eternal fire of peace, love, brotherhood, and sisterhood. If the light-skinned race makes the wrong choice of roads, then the destruction which they brought with them in coming to this country will come back to them and cause much suffering and death to all Earth's people. Today is your choice. You who have been given this choice, and you made the one to give Enbridge their way, to let their oil keep going. No mention of that it's 70 years old when they said 50 years maximum. This engineering is flawed. That's been put before you by experts. No mention of that. It's not safe. Standards somehow allow shortcuts. So all of this is to say, we are here bearing witness, and all the public you've heard from are bearing witness. We have a responsibility right now, and it's so terrifying that you could not see your way to say, Enbridge, you don't get your way. The people do.
Thank you, Ms. Bieber. Moses Bieber. And Pearl, you're up.
It's too tall. Okay, you want us to try standing? He's been coming here for years, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can just stand, honey.
I'd either be too short or too tall.
I think you're good now. Try that out. There you go. Just speak big.
All right, now I know that this microphone is at the lowest level, but that doesn't make me any less efficient, and that I don't need a piece of paper to simply say that all of us are pleading to not have death. And maybe something unknown by you guys. And like, I think that all these people who agree with this are awesome. Just like she said, like the Mishomis book, she passed that down to me. And, I mean, you could choose the death route, but none of us agree with it, as you've seen and ignored. And why make this public commission anyway if it's planned out to disagree with us? Literally planned out first. And I really don't get the people, like, apparently just, like, someone to, like, make angry, hurt feelings, because, like, if that is what supports you, it matters a lot less than choosing the death route. And one thing is another, like, imagine a whole circle. It's not even all bedrock, and even if it was, what would the tunnel do? Cover up the oil? All you have to do is just switch it on to take it out. There's about 5 people running line 5. Enbridge has a lot of people, but only 5 people in line 5. And like I said before, I do not need a piece of paper to plead for having life and not death. And like anybody who's laughing at me for a bad reason has a lesson to learn. Like I said, it would be a circle too, and like we've already had some small leaks here, and if we had another one, the ice is going to come. And, like, it's worse enough now if they're not going to shut down, but now they're planning to make another one. You see, I'm running out of jokes to make, and right now, I think it's, like, pretty much not hopeless, but maybe most of these so-called leaders think it should be hopeless. Think that the state itself should be hopeless and have everybody be deaf. And like in some building we made like lots of pictures of the catastrophe, and what would they care? It would ruin themselves and it would ruin all of us and you guys. And I don't get the point of ruining yourself. I'm like, they just want the money, they don't care. And why give all your will just because they're rich and they want all the money? Like most of the millionaires, billionaires, like so wealthy that 10 generations could have it. 10 generations, and even then they'd have like 1,000 left. And then people became greedy for money because of the trading. Though it's pretty much fake. Like trading stuff for other stuff is one thing, and these lines can put an end to it all, even if it were to already be hopeless. Could put an end to it right now. Probably, maybe even it's happening this second. And
Mr.
request
Garza, I
to
need
those
you to
who
wrap up.
listened.
Thank you, Moses. Pro-Viber. Oh, and sorry, before you start, Lisa Spitz is up next.
I have to say I'm disgusted that grown adults such as yourself could believe such utter BS that Enbridge has been throwing at you and make a decision that holds no competent regard for our future in this state. Something that stood out to me when I heard you talking was the word reasonable. This is not a reasonable solution. It's a phony solution. Basically putting a Band-Aid on the tunnel. Okay. Enbridge does not have a plan when these huge machines go under the water to try and build this tunnel. They do not have a plan if they break. There's nothing like this has ever been attempted before, and it's not going to help if the tunnel were to leak. This is just completely illegal at this point. The governor told them to shut it down. The tribes told them to shut it down, and there's no words for how ridiculous it is that a decision like this could be made. Thank you.
Lisa Spitz, and then Andrea Pierce. Andrea Pierce, and then Bob Hamilton.
Hello there. I'm Andrea Pierce, Wasnode Kwe Indigenikas, Wakanaka Singodawa Nadojaba, Makwa Nadodam. I am tribal. I am from Little Traverse Bay Band of Odawa Indians, and I have to tell you, I am completely disgusted by your vote. Totally and completely. I am disgusted that these children have to sit here and feel hopeless hopeless. You know what it's like to be their ages and feel hopeless in our government? Seriously, you're supposed to protect the Great Lakes, protect us. These pipelines and tunnels are going to go through my tribal lands, through my people's lands, through my community. And I think that's just reprehensible. I think what you've done here is just negligence, complete and utter negligence. And when this pipeline breaks and this tunnel breaks, 70-year-old pipeline, how long do you think it's going to last? Seriously, how long? 70 years old, supposed to last 50. Shouldn't have been in the Straits of Mackinac at all. We do not need this product. We use less than, 5 to 10%. We could find other ways around it. We're distancing away from fossil fuels. We can't live on fossil fuels. We do not need this stranded asset from when we get off of fossil fuels and move on to something else. You've ignored tribal governments, tribal citizens. I don't know how many times I've been up here. 23,000 comments you ignored. You're right up there with Nestle. And I want you to know you have literally and completely ruined Christmas for so many people in this state of Michigan. And this decision you've made, and I'm pointing at all three of you, I know you abstained, but you're going to be I'm sure we're going to be appealing this. You're going to have to make a decision sooner or later, and I want you to know this will be on your heads for the rest of your lives. And I really mean it. I am disgusted with you people. I am. I am chair of the Anishinaabe Caucus. I am a tribal citizen, and I work with MEJC, Michigan Environmental Justice Coalition, and I'm going to be watching you. You have disgusted me, and I'm not going to be nice to you anymore.
Thank you, Ms. Pierce. We have Lauren Sargent, and then
Good afternoon.
Nova.
My name is Dr. Lauren Sargent. I'm with Washtenaw 350, and I am really disappointed, utterly disgusted, more like. You all ought to be hanging your heads in shame, and you should stop calling yourselves the Michigan Public Service Commission, because there was no public service apparent here this afternoon. So we already know, as the gentleman who just went before me already stole my thunder, we know what Enbridge is going to do. They're going to do what they've been doing, which is lying, obfuscating, wringing every penny out of their pipeline until it is no longer profitable, and they will leave us with the stranded asset. If we are incredibly lucky, that will happen before that pipeline ruptures, but I'm afraid that is not extremely likely at all. As you yourselves mentioned, it's out of date and very vulnerable. You also know that we need to eliminate our dependence on fossil fuels. Why, in God's name, would we contemplate any new infrastructure for fossil fuels, let alone under our Great Lakes and all through our whole state? We're nothing but a shortcut, and you're going to turn our lakes into an open sewer. You also know that there's a risk of earthquake if they do actually start to try to tunnel, because you have been provided with information that there's a fault line under there that has not been investigated. You also know that there are indigenous burial grounds and memorials that are yet to be fully identified, and they are very much deserving of protection. You know this because we told you so, and we found it and told you, and that's been completely ignored. And then to say, oh, thank you so much for tribal participation, bullshit. You completely ignored it, and you know it. So this is a shameful, short-sighted, and petty decision. Please, at least, remove public service from your title and letterhead and from the outside of this building, because it is misleading.
Thank you, Ms. Sargent. Next, we have Nova, and then Julie Stakecki.
My name's Nova. I'm from the Lake Michigan Lakeshore area, where the Lake Michigan hits the Grand River. The Grand River's gone through enough. Thanks, Enbridge, you've screwed us over again. December 6th of 2016 is the first time I even heard of Line 5, and now all I can do is pray that we can check your bank statements and find out who paid you to just destroy what we've been putting and working so hard to stand against. 6 years later, 23,000 signatures, and you can't get the hint that we do not want Line 5. And Enbridge especially, with he's sitting over doodling on his paper over here, ignoring what the people are saying. It's a danger to the water, the residents of the state, and the eventual stranded asset. You have now sentenced the realities of Enbridge's past failures and irresponsible actions and policies to be our legacy, and you're responsible for it. And not only that, but you've sentenced Enbridge's employees to death in that bedrock, because there have been 2 other tunnels with this technology drilled, and it has ended up in loss of life because the equipment breaks down, and now we can't even tunnel to get their bodies back. You sentenced people to death. You have sentenced the lakes to death. You have not looked at the facts that last anchor strike that you like to talk about happened from an Enbridge-owned sub-tractor vehicle. You have not been diligent in vetting this company and its attacks on our states already, and we keep burying the scars and the brunt of their past performance. You talk about the specs and design and construction of a pipeline and why it's a good alternative to Line 5, but the tunnel construction allows for construction of man camps in their wake. They are illegally running oil. They are trespassing. They have been evicted, and you're going to have to live with your parts in human trafficking and the sex trade that's going to come along. And we know Canada's history and the oil companies' roles in the trafficking of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in a tunnel that can be transported, and the publicized archaic fossil fuels, but also undocumented commodities such as humans in various states of health or unaliveness. And you have damned and doomed many generations to come. So I came here in opposition to this permit. Interesting how you went ahead and voted, even though there's 23,000 other voices, and mine today, and all these people today, and all our voices, but you didn't hear us. Wonder why. Check those pocketbooks. I'm standing in opposition to a tunnel permit, and I'll keep standing against it if I have to lay my fucking life down to it, because you don't care about anybody else's but your own, but I care about other people. I care about the state. I care about the water, and I care about my Indigenous brothers and sisters and their lives and the lack of security that you just gave us. So I hope you sleep well at what you've sentenced us to.
Thank you, Nova. And Jade Prang.
Hi there, my name is Jade. I'm from Kingsley, but I live in Lansing now to attend MSU. The first time I spoke out about the Line 5 tunnel was in 2019 when the Grand Traverse County Commission passed a resolution in support of the tunnel despite overwhelming opposition. It was this action that mobilized me to run for office and attempt to take my commissioner's seat. I wanted to reverse this decision and help create an actionable plan for my county to adapt to climate change. I did not win, but I learned how to organize and build coalitions as a direct result of the Grand Traverse Line 5 tunnel resolution. I switched my major to public policy, and this spring I will graduate and hopefully get admitted to a master's program for urban and regional planning. Everything in my studies so far has reinforced what I knew to be true. The climate is changing. We need to switch to sustainable energy quickly, and our Great Lakes are the most important natural resource that we as Michiganders and Americans must protect. The first time I spoke out against Line 5, my voice shook and I was afraid. I did not understand the love and support of the environmental community or how it would embrace and sustain me. I learned quickly that opposing pipelines and protecting the water would come as easily as breathing. It will soon be 2024, and the 5-year anniversary of my first time speaking out is rapidly approaching. I was 20 back then, and I will soon be 25. This means that I have spent 1/5 of my life fighting this tunnel, and I will gladly spend the rest of my life if I must. This pipeline needs to be shut down, and this tunnel should never be built. By permitting this tunnel to go forward, you are endangering the Great Lakes and the future of Michigan residents. Our water is precious and sacred, and when we say water is life, we mean it. You are endangering our lives with this decision. I am so disappointed in you, and I am so proud of everyone else in this room who has come to share their voices in opposition of the tunnel. We will fight to protect the water, the land, the air, and all of our relations. The opposition to Line 5 is too strong. You can put your agenda out late to try and prevent us from coming, but we will not stop. I will not stop. This is my future. This is my land, my water, my relatives. I should trust you to protect them, but I do not, and you have failed me today. You have failed the Indigenous community. You have failed the next 7 generations to come. And the next time that Line 5 leaks, because there will be a next time, I hope that each and every one of you hold yourself personally accountable, because I will.
It is not 2:30, and I put in a call to make a comment, so I'd like to use the remaining time to do that.
Comment,
it is not 2:30. It's 2:28.
We're well past the stated end time.
It is. You said 2:30. It is 2:28. So I'd like to have at least 2 minutes. I respectfully ask for what you agreed to. So what I want to say, my name is Terry Wilkerson. I'm from Pinckney, Michigan. And the use of Line 5 in any form fails to meet Michigan's public need in every form. The state of Michigan uses a small fraction of what flows through Line 5, and even so, there are alternatives which are feasible for the product it transports. There are not alternatives for the water, which is why Water is Life is our rallying call. The Great Lakes, provide drinking water for over 40 million people and 35 million species. As documented by Dr. Schwab from U of M, a large spill threatens 720 miles of coastline. But what's not highlighted is that the smallest spill ruins Mackinac Island and immediately devastates 3 counties and destroys our pure Michigan image, which is our call for tourism and hurts our economy. We don't know what the long-term negative impacts of the largest source of fresh water in the U.S. would be, but why take any risk that we don't need to for a foreign corporation's profit? We don't have to take the risk, and yet we're doing that. Hopefully you all know that the Great Lakes contains 95% of the fresh water in the U.S. Do you realize that if you made the continental U.S. a swimming pool and dumped the Great Lakes into it, that would be over 9 feet tall throughout the entire country? That's the volume of water that is ultimately needlessly at risk. As you, Chair, said, a spill would be catastrophic, which is why we need Line 5 out of the straits immediately in any form. And no delays with, tunnel permits, whatever. We need to shut it down immediately. And you have the power to help us do that. I thank you that you abstained from voting, because there is a lot to absorb, and this isn't over. So I hope you start reading and really doing the deep research needed to make a decision which supports the public that you're entrusted to. And I also wanted to say that Enbridge is already responsible for the 2 largest oil spills in the U.S. They repeatedly demonstrate irresponsibility, like right now, while they're ignoring a shutdown order and continuing to operate illegally. And they knew about the tear in the Kalamazoo line, and yet they continue to operate that until it burst. And this is the company that we're going to entrust with a tunnel that has no tunnel like this has ever been built, and we're mixing oil and electricity? I mean, really think about that. You don't need a science degree for that. That's just, it's just a dumb idea. I am terrified that a company that has been blatantly ignoring good practices and the law is going to be entrusted with a project that's never been done before, and it does not meet or exceed safety standards if you continue to do your research, which I beg you to do. You mentioned that protecting the Great Lakes is crucial, and please re-examine your decision so that when we see you again, you'll have thought about it beyond the corporation and the product and thinking about the water that is at risk. Thank you.
All right, that concludes the public comment portion of today's meeting.
What about them?
And
I speak for all the fish in
That,
Every living creature in the water as well.
that concludes today's meeting. The next regular commission meeting is scheduled for Thursday, December 21st, 2023 at 1:00 p.m. Is there a motion to adjourn, Commissioner Parrish?
Move to adjourn today's commission meeting.
We'll now have a vote on the motion to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries by unanimous vote. The meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.